Welcome to More Than a Few Words, a marketing conversation for business owners. This is your host, Lorraine Ball. And it's been a while since we've talked about websites, and they are such an important part of your business that we really need to have this conversation. And so I'm not going to do it alone. I have invited Monica Pitts to join me. She is the founder of May Create Design and host of the Marketing with Purpose podcast. She is a techie, crafty aerial dancer with a Bachelor of Science in Agriculture. Okay, that's a combination.
Yeah.
And
I come by it honest.
I love that. I love that there's a little bit of the Renaissance woman there. And so, Monica, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's wonderful to have you. And so, I know I'm passionate about websites. I think it's such an important part of your business. Why do you feel that way?
I feel like websites are a beautiful evergreen medium that hang out like day in and day out, meeting your customers when they need answers. And they're truly an online platform that you can own and tell your story on however you want to tell it. And that's why I love websites because I get to be in the passenger seat of other people's journeys and help them tell their story that everyone needs to hear.
Okay, so you've built a lot of websites in your career. What do you think some of the common mistakes are, some of the pitfalls that every business owner should really try to avoid as they're working on their website?
The first one is stock photos. I know that they used to be cool back in the 90s when I started building websites, but at this point, you just seem fake. And so that would be the first thing is use real images even if they're not super polished. I think real is better than polished every time. The second thing is they just tell their story the same way everybody else tells their story, which is actually not telling a story at all, but marketing crap, and that nobody wants to read that. You want to set yourself apart from the people that they're comparing you against. And to do that, you should be authentic. And that those photos, obviously, they lead into that, but just really tell your own story and make sure that you're speaking in your own language, not above somebody's head, and have talking points that they care about. And I think that's a great start. People tend to not do those two things because they're afraid. They're
Abs-
afraid.
you are so right. And I we had some fun years ago just finding the most ridiculous stock images we could find and trying to deliberately build them into not real websites, but basically sample websites that we would send as examples of, oh my God, don't do this.
Mhm.
And there are times that you might have to resort to that, but if the majority of your images are realistic, I think you definitely nail it. But I want to focus a little bit more on the writing and the content, the information that you put on your website.
Mhm.
You sort of alluded to the fact that people fall into a trap of sounding like everybody else. But if I don't, will people not realize I'm in that business? How do I balance that?
I mean, the first, I always tell people to just talk to the person who answers the phone, talk to the salesperson, make sure that you have like a really good line of communication with those people because they will almost write your website content for you. Figure out what are the questions that people ask, especially as they enter into the buying cycle with your company. And those are the answers to the questions that you're going to provide on your services pages. So if it's your coverage area or your process, even your price. If your competitors show their price, you can show your price too. Don't be afraid to do it. They need to be able to compare apples to apples, those visitors do, to make sure that you are a viable service provider against your competitors. So I think, don't be afraid to be yourself. Go figure out what people need to hear and then say it in your own language. They come to work with you because they like you. So act like you when you're out there, or else you're just being a faker, and that's lame. We don't want to do that.
No, we absolutely don't. And I think you kind of touched on something really briefly there, this idea of when they come, and this idea that maybe on social media you can't be one person and someone else on your website.
Yeah, you need to be consistent throughout the entire process, and I think that some companies that do have a sales staff, it can, like, fall off, the truck there, and they're not consistently communicating throughout their social media and their marketing and their sales process. You want people to hear the same educational message throughout, the same vocabulary, the same personality, so that way they can actually talk to you. I mean, you all know what it feels like when you call in for help and you think you're talking to a local business and you go to a call center in the middle of a foreign country and you're like, "What?" No, no,
Hmm.
no. And that so you're giving them that same feeling when you're writing in another voice that isn't your own on your website or in social media. You just want it to be consistent.
Absolutely. When I first started, I had just come out of corporate. And of course, writing for corporate was very different than writing for my own website.
Mhm.
And I felt like I had to have this very buttoned up, polished, very, very stuffy voice. And I go back and I read some of that now and I think, oh my God, why did anybody buy from me?
I did the same thing, and then one day I read my website copy and I thought, "Yuck. I don't even know who this person is. They are like yuck. They sound like everyone else." And so I came up with this new marketing messaging that we still use to this day, and it's all formulated around the things that we hear our clients say and that we say internally. And we say a
Mhm,
lot of weird things
mhm.
internally. Like we'll say, well, if 1992 called, they want their website back, or your marketing or your trade show booth looks like a excuse for a poor excuse for a sixth grade science experiment, and I and we all know those, we see those. And when
Mhm,
I told my staff we were going to do that, they were like, "I am freaked out. I don't
mhm.
know about that." And I was like, "Well, if it doesn't make your stomach hurt just a little bit, we're not doing it right. We're going to try it. If we tank, then we'll take it down and we'll put the old crap up again."
Absolutely. You know what? I love that because part of it is that's what the experience of working with you is like.
Mhm.
And when you can capture that essence, some people are going to love it. They're going to see that. They're going to laugh. They're going to get the joke. And some people won't. And you know what? Those those are the people you don't want to work with anyway because they're not good clients. You don't get them, they don't get you. And so I think you are right. You're so right when you say that your website needs to sound like you and it needs to be authentic because you're going to attract people who get you, that want to work with you, and that you want to work with. So, as I'm thinking about my website, and you talked a lot about the service pages and listening to your customer service people and salespeople for the customer service people pages. But what about my homepage? Where do I get the style or the language for that page?
Well, your homepage has some really specific purposes. The first thing is it has to introduce people to your company or organization really fast. Like they should not have to think about what you do. It should be ridiculously apparent. So instead of putting a mission up there with flowery language that people have to like think about and dissect in their head, just be like, "I'm a plumber." And that's okay. Like, okay. You can say it in your own words, but you know what I'm saying. And so
Hmm.
then the second thing that you want to do is anticipate what people are going to need from you. You can go back to those salespeople again. What are the questions that they're asking? We want to drag them into the website quickly to allow them to get what they need. And then you get to decide what other supporting evidence you might provide for them to help them make a good decision to contact you. It could be resources, an event, portfolio, pictures, like stuff like that. So that way they see, "Oh, you do a good job," right? You're building credibility with them right after you're like, "Hey, I know what you need and I'm awesome." And then last but not least, you want to invite them to the party. So they need to have a very clear understanding of what to do next, whether it's contacting you, emailing you, downloading this thing. You get to determine that.
Awesome. All right. One final web tip. If I'm looking at my website right now and there's one thing I have to get right, what should I focus on?
Oh man, this is going to sound really techy and dorky, but I mean, obviously they have to know what you do, but it has to load quickly. And I think that a lot of people overlook that. If you have a loading website, it will drop in Google search rankings. People will not stay around. You can spend all this time and all this money on your site, but people won't even hear what you have to say. So, my favorite tool for this is GT Metrics. And I call him my boyfriend. Ever since I found him, he has been my boyfriend. And my husband knows all about him, so it's okay. But go out, you can run a free report, and it will diagnose what's going on your website. And if it doesn't load quickly, follow some of those instructions or find somebody that can help you optimize that site because it's got to load fast or people won't even find it.
Absolutely. Monica, this was great. You packed a lot of information very quickly into the conversation.
I try.
Awesome. Well, if you are interested in the things that Monica was talking about, if you want to learn a little bit more about what you should put on your website, there's going to be a link to a website content checklist. It's a page by page website content checklist, and the link will be in the show notes. Monica, thanks again for being a part of the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And if you've enjoyed today's conversation and you'd like to find other resources for your business, and if you enjoyed today's conversation and you'd like to find other resources for your business, look for MTFW wherever you listen to podcasts. Listen to two, they're short. This has been another episode of More Than a Few Words. Thanks for listening.